to Michigan, where I'm coming to you live. Playful otters, wily wolves, blue racer snakes, towering moose, reclusive cougars, gregarious red squirrels, and hopefully next month, quick as a blink, white-tailed deer. Take a moment to consider who is in your habitat today. What needs do they have? What challenges do they face? Now I invite you to take the deepest breath you've taken all day, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Feel yourself settling into the space in which you are. October is what I affectionately refer to as blessing seasons. The feast day of St. Francis is a St. Francis cross, falls on October 4th. St. Francis, who referred to more than human beings as his brothers and sisters and preached to the birds, is for many the patron saint of animals. To honor his spirit, many sacred and secular institutions across the country, maybe some in your neck of the woods, host annual blessings of the animals during this month. This year, I had the honor of officiating a number of these joy-filled celebrations. I began each event with a prayer for animals not present with us, seen and unseen, many of whom have died or been separated from their human companions in hurricanes and other weather-related events, or are caught in the crossfires of war around the world, or are subject to exploitation by humans for a myriad of reasons. This begs the question about which I'm going to spend just a couple minutes with you this afternoon. How do we make space for both joy and sorrow, celebrations and wakes? What is joy? And is it different than happiness? In my experience, the two words are often used interchangeably, but they really are two different concepts. In researching the meaning of happiness, I discovered it is a rather fuzzy and subjective term. In every Indo-European language, without exception, going all the way back to ancient Greek, the word for happiness is derived from the same word as luck. For example, hap is the Old English root of happiness, meaning luck or chance, as in perhaps or happenstance. This suggests happiness is not something we can control. Happiness literally happens to us and is ultimately out of our hands. In researching the meaning of joy, I discovered the Greek root word for joy is chara, spelled CH, but pronounced like the CH in charisma. And joy shares its root with one of my all-time favorite words in the English language, grace. The Greek word for grace is charis. As my Greek dictionary says, it seems that charis is not always clearly differentiated in meaning from chara. Grace and joy go together. Simply put, happiness on the one hand stems from external circumstances often beyond our control. Joy on the other is not dependent upon circumstances. Joy is more reflective, more profound, more deep-seated, and more persistent than the fleeting experience of happiness. In fact, joy often holds hands with grief and suffering. In his book entitled Inciting Joy, author Ross Gay asks, what if joy is not only entangled with pain or suffering or sorrow, but is also what emerges from how we care for each other through those things? Gay's words are similar to another saint's, Fred Rogers. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. I facilitated a pet memorial sunset cruise Friday night, and I read these words authored by Douglas McKelvey from the second volume of his series, Every Moment Holy. If comfortable now, you can close your eyes or soften your gaze and listen. I inserted the word most comforting to me, Creator Spirit, However, I invite you to insert in your mind's eye the name for whatever source grounds and guides you: God, nature, love, goddess. This is entitled Liturgy for Embracing Both Joy and Sorrow. Do not be distant, O Creator Spirit, lest I find this burden of loss too heavy and shrink from the necessary experience of my grief. Do not be distant, O Creator Spirit, lest I become so mired in yesterday's hurts that I miss entirely the living gifts this day hold. Let me neither ignore my pain, pretending all is okay when it isn't, nor coddle and magnify my pain so that I dull my capacity to experience all that remains good in this life. For joy that denies sorrow is neither hard won, nor true, nor eternal. It is not real joy at all. And sorrow that refuses to make space for the return of joy and hope, in the end, becomes nothing more than a temple for the worship of my own woundedness. Now breathe out sorrow and breathe in joy. Breathe out lament and breathe in hope. Breathe out pain to breathe in comfort. Breathe out sorrow to breathe in joy. In one hand, I grasp the burden of my grief, while with the other, I reach for the hope of grief's redemption. And here, between the tension of the two, between what was and what will be, is the very is of now. Let my heart be surprised by, shaped by, warmed by, remade by the same joy that forever wells within and radiates from your heart, O Creator Spirit. May each of us give and receive joy, even in sorrow. May it be so. Thank you. Next, we invite you. Oh, just a moment. That's not the right place. I'm sorry. Need a little grace right now. Next, we have Jessica Hoffman. At the beginning of each Sunday service, we remind ourselves of the tenets of agreement which this community strives to uphold. We invite an invited member of our community to read the words aloud, and we encourage everyone to take time to contemplate how the tenets can impact and influence our daily lives. Today, we're delighted that Jess Hoffman is joining us. Jess is a business and leadership consultant by day and a friend to the animals at all times and in all ways. She is also an animal chaplain, as well as both a human and animal Reiki practitioner, who recently returned to her roots in animal sheltering as a volunteer with the Kentucky Humane Society. Jess is a compassionate friend of the animals, seeking to live in ways that attract rather than promote kinder and more caring ways of living in the world and sharing our planet with all beings. Her name may sound familiar to you because Jess is the co-facilitator now of Compassion Consortium's Companion Animal Loss Group, which meets on Zoom on the second Thursday of each month. So she'll be facilitating on November 14th. Put it on your calendars. Jess, can you please read the tenets?
Yes, thank you, Reverend Jenny. Our tenets of agreement. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or as formless. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy and are to be extended to all sentient beings. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, humans or otherwise. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. We offer guidance and peer support for all those who are seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. We commit to sharing these principles freely with humility and respect in support of non-human animals and the earth.
Thank you, Jess. Next, we invite you into an interspecies spiritual practice. We hope these practices will help increase your connections to animals and the well-being of your body. Today, we have Genie Joseph with us. Genie Joseph is a recent animal chaplain graduate with the Wood Dragon cohort. She is an animal communicator and the executive director of the Human Animal Connection, a nonprofit therapy animal organization whose flagship program is Canines Teach Compassion, where she brings therapy animals into high schools. Welcome, Genie.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. So I'd like to spend a few minutes with you, introducing you perhaps, or reintroducing you to the world of donkeys. And we have a workshop that we do called Doing Nothing with Donkeys. And this is a workshop where the donkey leads the events. No two workshops are the same because it's the donkey that directs our activities. And here's Junior. He's a rescue donkey, and he's so happy to be included with us here today. And we've been working with him for about 2 years, and he's showing just increasingly amazing abilities to sense where people's pain is. We had one woman come who had recently lost a son to suicide, and none of us humans knew that, but Junior knew, and he spent the entire time with her in the session. So he's just amazing. He's just showing us so much of what is possible. And I'm not sure if you're seeing the, oh, let me make sure we're not on share screen. So let me get you back to where we need to be. Sorry about that. Okay. We good now? Are we seeing that?
Very
Sarah,
good, Jeannie. Well done.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to introduce you to a couple of principles that we work with. And the first one in our program, the Human Animal Connection, is this notion of freedom of choice. So we let the donkey lead. We don't do anything that he doesn't want to do. And in fact, he sets the pace, he sets the tone, he sets the activities for the entire workshop. Another principle that we really hold dear is the idea that animals have opinions. So our being with him is really about sensing, how does he feel? What does he want? What does he need? What would he like from us? And he is the one who directs the entire flow of our time together. This next idea is one of the reasons why I feel it's, of course, all animals are sacred and wonderful, but donkeys have some really interesting spiritual qualities that they can share with humans. And one of them is in history, they've been kind of maligned. They've been thought of as stupid or stubborn or asses or whatever. And we really want to educate the world that this is not at all the case, that they have an innate brilliance that we can really benefit by respecting. And so one is this principle of towards and away. And what this means is that donkeys, if they haven't been traumatized or if they haven't had their will broken, if they're free, they will move towards what is good and what is safe, and they will move away from what does not feel good or comfortable and what is not safe. And this is such a valuable lesson to people who have experienced trauma, because as I've noticed in working with people with trauma, one of the many things that happens is that we lose our inner guidance of towards and away, meaning we no longer seek what is really good and healthy and safe for us, and instead are drawn to things that are familiar and often unsafe based upon our traumatic histories. And so the donkey can show us in very direct ways. He will move towards what feels good, where the energy is good, where the heart is flowing, where the person is present, and he will move away if the person is afraid or has some anger or just not ready for contact. And so by observing this, we become aware of that innate brilliance of towards and away, and this can help us in our own lives. So before we go any further, I had my animal communication mentor had a rabbit named Spot, and Spot was a philosopher who chose to incarnate as a rabbit. So hopefully that's not too strange for people on this call today. And when Spot heard that I was going to be talking with you folks about the donkeys, he wanted to add something. And what he wanted you all to know was that life is the art of being in the doing. So in other words, if we're doing without being, it's not so good for us, it's not so good for anyone else. But whenever we bring our being into the doing, it is a beautiful healing for us and everyone in the field. And when we do this work with the donkey, not only does it affect him, but all the horses in the barn will often stop and pause and just be present with us. So one of the things that I've noticed, and I've worked with over 4,000 soldiers with PTSD and hospitalized soldiers, and one of the things I've discovered is that people who've had trauma, we often have imaginal trauma. We are afraid of our imagination. We are separate from our imagination. And we want to help people harness the power of our imagination because it can really help us heal. And so if you would, I'm going to ask you to do some things today that may evoke and invoke your imagination. It's a big part of our healing process, is really reclaiming that. So imagine, if you would, that we could breathe into peaceful presence. So I'll be quiet for just a moment so you can have a breath, whatever kind of breath you like, into peaceful presence with the donkey. Maybe you can feel that. That's lovely. So one of the things I want to invite you to consider is that presence is a fluid state. It's not like a fixed thing. Like if you're present once, you're going to be present forever. We move in and out of presence all the time, and that's okay. So we don't have to judge ourselves. We find that we're not present. We just simply need to choose to return to presence. So let's just take a moment to choose to enter this fluid presence together. Nice. And one of the ways that the donkey helps us understand this is the idea of presence entering through your senses, that we can enter a state of presence through our senses. The mind isn't all that useful to us when we're entering into presence, but the senses are very, very powerful. And this is one of the ways that donkeys are very wise, because they can sense all about our energy, all about if we're present or not through their senses. So we're going to play a little game with our noses, if you would. And I'm going to ask you to breathe, but with the attention is going to be on the inside of your nose, as if it's going to make your nose twitch. And maybe you want big breaths, maybe you want small breaths. Practice with different breaths. I'm just going to do one little donkey one. See if you can do 3 little quick breaths. And the goal is just to feel the inside of your nostrils. Go ahead, play. And I call this the twitch of knowing, because when the donkey comes to meet a new person, if he likes them, he will give them a thorough sniffing. He'll sniff the heart chakra, the solar plexus, the neck, the area all around, and he'll just get to know you through his nose. So let's just take a moment to enter into the twitch of knowing, the tiny little sensations in your nose. Good. Lovely. And now we're going to play with our donkey ears. Just imagine that you had these beautiful, big, tall donkey ears. They can turn individually. One can turn this way, the other can turn the other way. They have the ability to hear sounds that we don't hear. And just for a moment, instead of being active listeners, we're going to be receiving listeners. And imagine, what is the sound of tiny hooves on the dirt? So open your donkey ears to hear this very subtle sound. They are so gentle as they walk on that dirt. And they care a lot about their hooves, the conditions of their hooves. They won't step on anything that doesn't feel good to them. Lovely. And now we're going to take our eyes. You can look at this donkey, look at his eyes, and just let your eyes go soft. Donkeys like our soft eyes. So instead of a stare, we're just going to let our eyes soften into pools of love. Soft, soft love. And this little 5-year-old girl, when she first came, she was afraid of donkeys, and we taught her how to work with energy and set boundaries for how close she wanted the donkey to come. And he understood exactly what she wanted as she used her intention to really enjoy this experience. And by the end, she was hugging him. So the moral of the story is to let your donkey senses lead you. And if you want to know why, it's because it's yummy. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you want to put in the chat, maybe what was your favorite entree, whether it was the twitching nose, the soft eyes, the wiggly ears that can hear so much and love to be rubbed. Love to hear those thoughts in chat. And you can do this with any animal that you work with. I just brought in the donkeys today, but any animals that you're working with will love it when you tune in with your senses. So thank you for giving us a time to have a little donkey love to share between us. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it back over to Victoria. And I thank you so much for taking a moment to share some love with donkeys.
How cool to have the opportunity to share love with donkeys. How often does that happen? I remember a wonderful trip out west, a driving trip long ago, and the wild donkeys and burros were just such an amazing experience to be with these beings that most of us don't get to hang out with. So thank you so very much, Jenny. And now I just want to wish everybody a happy October. And we are going to have the most fascinating discussion coming up with somebody that I admire a great deal. I'm not going to pronounce her first name correctly. She can do that for you. But Tamara Bedić. And something that I really love as someone who is fascinated by the big picture and by meaning making is somebody who has parts of their lives that don't seem to add up. So have you known people that are Wiccans or witches, people who are pagans and who identify with the nature religions of old Europe? And I've known lots and lots of them, and most of them are artists, or they're psychics, or they have a little shop somewhere selling all sorts of interesting little trinkets and charms and magical things. Well, Tamara Bedić would identify religiously with this tradition, but she's an attorney, and she's also a very well-known animal rights activist who is just doing amazing things for animals within the legal profession and outside it. Welcome so much, Tamara.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victoria, for inviting a Wiccan to Compassion Consortium, especially one as atypical as myself. Atypical not only because I'm vegan, but because I'm an attorney, as you said, and that means I'm very left-brained, I'm very rational. I'm trained to demand evidence and to seek proof. And these aren't usually traits that one associates with Wicca. But, more about this if your audience is interested in my history.
Well, I mean, we love having a Wiccan. We had to do a little thought about having a lawyer, but we figured, we've got one on our advisory board, our Reverend William, who had the initial idea for Compassion Consortium, is a lawyer. So we figured it would be okay to let another one in. So we do joke, but I am really interested in your history. So did Wicca come first or did animal rights come first?
Actually, rejecting cow's milk came first. My family tells me that at 6 months, I absolutely refused to transition from breast milk to cow's milk. I would throw hissy fits when milk would come anywhere close to me. And my grandparents were really unnerved by my obstinacy on this issue, but I guess that was just a hint of things to come, right? At 2.5, this is my actual memory, at 2.5, I recall like the complete joy and delight in managing to overturn a pavestone and revealing and then watching all of the glorious life forms underneath, the slugs, the beetles, the roly-polies, the worms. I was completely enthralled. I was completely enthralled by my friends. At 5, I had my first major breakup with the Judeo-Christian Yahweh. And by 9, I had rescued my first of a great many injured and sick birds. Then a couple of years later, I got into Greek mythology. This was around 11 or 12. I especially was fascinated by Greek goddesses. And I began creating a belief system that centered women, because that's what made sense to me. And I wanted to define my relationship with the divine myself and not have that imposed on me from the outside. And it wasn't until several years later when I picked up this book called Spiral Dance by Starhawk, and I realized, my goddess, there are other people who believe what I believe. I'm not alone. But they call themselves Wiccans, and I learned subsequently that Wicca is an Anglo-Saxon word for wise. So 16-year-old me definitely wanted to be wise.
Because we're already smart. We may as well be wise at 16. That is utterly fascinating. So tell us about the beliefs and philosophy of Wicca or witchcraft, as that is more accurate for the practice you do. I know there's a little difference, I have heard.
Well, let's see. Well, Wicca is pre-Christian. It's a European spirituality. So I'm not culturally appropriating anything that isn't from my ancestors and from my foremothers who survived the burning times. We revere a goddess and we celebrate 4 pairs of major festivals, and these are called the Sabbats. Each of the pairs is celestial or terrestrial, right? So there's this real call and response effect between the cosmos and our planet Earth in our rituals. The divine and the sacred is female as well as male, and Mother Goddess gave birth to this world. So we're all children of Mother Earth. We believe that the world is interconnected and interdependent, and that life exists when balance is maintained. We believe that sexuality should be healing and regenerative, not commercialized or exploited. And we believe that no one should take more than they need and that we should give back generously. Now, unlike most other monotheistic religions that believe in a creator God who forms the world but lives outside of that world, we believe the contrary. We believe the reverse, that Goddess is present and that she's present and alive and that she's in nature. And this is why nature should be honored and revered. And by nature, I mean everything from animals to air, from plants to ponds, rivers, rocks, rainbows. All of these are different aspects of the sacred.
And yet, as I observe your beautiful religion, which has fascinated me for many years, I don't run into many vegetarians, a few here and there. And so with all this appreciation of nature, there's also something that looks to me like the same kind of human dominance that Christians and others seem to feel is divinely ordained. Can you ferret through some of that?
Sure, I'll try. In general, I don't believe it's ever possible to eliminate cognitive moral dissonance from one's life, whether you're witch or vegan or omnivore or Christian or Muslim. I don't know of anyone who lives 100% in alignment with their values 100% of the time. I think Dr. Melanie Joyce thought about this and said really well that the key question isn't whether we're perfectly aligned, but whether we're aware of our cognitive moral dissonance and what we're doing about it. So do we reflect on our behavior? Do we strive towards greater integrity? Do we make a conscious effort to become the hero that our dog thinks we already are? So these, in my opinion, are sort of the moral challenges that we should embrace and that we should encourage others to consider too.
So for you personally, is there a point of intersection of your spiritual beliefs and your commitment to animal rights?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I think everyone on this call knows that we're killing the planet and that our oceans are full of plastic and that fracking releases millions of tons of methane into the atmosphere. In the last 50 years, we lost 70% of our wildlife. Several times a week, we're killing man's best friends in places that we perversely call shelters. And our bombs are raining down on women and children in Gaza. We all know this. And so the question becomes like, how do you not curl up into a ball of despair? One way for people to react is to shut down. But I don't think that we have the time anymore for that kind of luxury. I think that now we're in a period where it's all hands on deck and we all collectively work towards averting this impending climate catastrophe that we've created. So as activists, how do we replenish our energies and heal our secondary trauma, but keep fighting? Obviously, collective action helps, and so does community building, which is what you, Victoria, and William are doing so well with Compassion Consortium. So thank goddess for you guys. Now, my spiritual practice sustains me from emotional burnout and from the despair. And on rare occasions, it helps me over a mental block or self-sabotage or negativity. So that's how I use it.
Beautiful. And many years ago, I was at a Wiccan event and someone there said to me, "This is a very lonely religion," suggesting that she didn't often share her spiritual path with people outside it. So I find it fascinating that in a country that places such high value on freedom of religion, this is one that has very often been left out. Why is that?
Wow, well, that's a really good question. And it's a timely question because obviously next month we're going to be celebrating the people called pilgrims. And people came to America's shores to escape that Catholic versus Protestant bloodshed and violence that was enveloping Europe in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries. And you're right, pilgrims yearn for religious freedom, but they intended it for themselves. It didn't encompass Native American spirituality. In fact, Native Americans were forcibly converted and baptized and enslaved. And meanwhile, back in Europe, hundreds of thousands, and some historians will argue millions of people were being burnt alive at the stake as heretics and as witches. Now, 80% of those people were women, and those victims were tortured into confessing that they're witches, and then they were tortured further to name 12 others. And then those 12 were captured and tortured into confessing that they were witches, and tortured into naming 12 more neighbors. So there were these entire waves of naming other people under torture. And sometimes there were places in Germany, for example, where entire villages were bereft of women. Now keep in mind that witch finders were paid for every witch that they found. And so this was incentivized. It was incentivized to find as many witches as possible. Now back to your pilgrims, right? Did they leave that violence behind? I would argue no. They recreated it in Salem in 1692 and 93. So just as the principle all men are created equal did not include African slaves or indigenous men, it didn't even pretend to include women, so too this principle of religious freedom was intended for the 1%ers. You know, it took blood, sweat, and tears to stretch that principle out to include and protect others. Think about the anti-Semitism in this country right now and the discrimination against Muslims. Religious freedom is an ongoing struggle, and we're not done yet.
Thank you. So as you, as an animal rights advocate, try to reach others who have a similar spiritual view, what do you suggest? I know all of us who are part of any kind of spiritual tradition is like, let's try to get those people, the ones that we know, the people in church and synagogue and mosque and ashram. And sometimes they're pretty hard to reach, maybe second only to family. So what do you do bringing your veganism and your animal rights into your faith tradition?
Okay. Well, you know, I think your biggest challenge is always finding your local witches, if you're not a pagan or a big Wiccan yourself, because, you know, we're ubiquitous, but pretty secretive. So if you want to connect with your friendly neighborhood witch, the thing I would recommend that you look for are events with names like Ecofeminist Nature Retreat or Full Moon Drum Circle, right? If you attend events that celebrate nature and that celebrate the moon's beauty, you'll very likely be shoulder to shoulder with independent, nature-loving witchy women, right? They're going to be there. But let's say that you're lucky and that there's already a local public Wiccan event that's coming up, like Spiral Dance 2024 in Berkeley, California, in the Pauley Ballroom. That's a public event. There's one here in New York, the Samhain ritual on October 31st on Cherry Hill in Central Park. So if the Sabbath is public and if it's open and if you're going, keep in mind that Wiccans conclude every Sabbath by sharing food and building community. And if you want to encourage Wiccans, this is what I do. If you want to encourage Wiccans to consider veganism, bake a delicious chocolatey dessert to share, right? Vegan brownies, vegan chocolate chip cookies, vegan chocolate cake. When you bake these desserts, you're baking them in the spirit of honoring female reproductive rights, because you're not including any eggs. You're not including any milk. You're deliberately and you're intentionally not including these things. So once you're at the Sabbath and you've contributed your offering and the witches present start complimenting the scrumptious chocolatey contribution, you gently mention that there's an added spiritual benefit here. And everyone's like, what do you mean? What added spiritual benefit? And you say, no one's reproductive system was exploited or abused. Now that gets people thinking. And maybe they'll ask a question. Maybe they won't, but it will get them thinking. So you don't need to be preachy. You can just contribute something wonderful and chocolatey and then lean into that ecofeminist language at a Sabbath that you're invited to.
How beautifully you presented that. I love that. You know, for really,
It's the
for any
chocolate.
feminists or, yeah, well, it's true. I mean, the vegan, it's how do you convert anybody on earth? Brownies. We got that.
Right.
So, Tamara, as one of the most active animal rights people I know, what are the initiatives that you're involved right now? What seems really pressing and important at this point in time? And what can we do to help?
Sure, sure. Thank you for asking. Well, if anyone present is interested in that Samhain ritual on Cherry Hill in Central Park, that's already public and it's on Facebook. You Facebook search Samhain, Cherry Hill, and Central Park. It will be there. You can click on interested or going. But some of your viewers might already know and recognize me as the chair of the Animal Rights Committee of the National Lawyers Guild. So my committee organizes, promotes, and hosts free quarterly webinars on different subjects of animal rights and the law. And we generally have 6 to 9 experts coming to speak on a particular topic. So most recently, we discussed farm animals and the Farm Bill. Now, your listeners probably know that the Farm Bill controls 50 billion, and that's billion with a B, land animal lives in the US. And the Farm Bill is going to resume center stage as soon as a president is inaugurated into office. Now, it's critical that we stop the EATS Act that was embedded into the Farm Bill. If people here don't know what I'm talking about or missed the webinar, you can still hear the various video clips, beginning with our video clip of US Congresswoman Escobar, and then the video clip of James McGovern, Congressman James McGovern of Massachusetts. Leah Garces spoke. Pat Brown, the founder of Impossible Foods, Dr. Sailesh Rao, they were all present and they all spoke. Their video clips are available on our Facebook page, and I'll give you that ID. It's NLG for National Lawyers Guild, nyc.animal.rights. So again, nlgnyc.animal.rights. And we'll be announcing our next webinar on our Facebook page shortly. So come join us.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And someone was also asking in the chat, your 50 million online event, is there a recording of that or a way to access it?
Yes, it was cut into these various short videos, and you could see each of them in turn. They were uploaded daily after the webinar. So the webinar was in late August. So August 30th was the first upload, and then September 1st, and then so on.
So that is also nlgnyc.animal.rights.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you for making it easy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tamara, this was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so very much for being part of this. And now I'm moving on to one of my wonderful colleagues. And since our personnel is so different this week, I'm not sure who I'm passing it on to, but will the right person please step up? You are muted, Reverend
Happy
Sarah.
to do that from the bridge, which Phil has given me today. And wow, that was a really, really wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Tamara. And I would like the recipe for that ooey gooey chocolate Samhain recipe. So
You
if
got
that
it.
is available too, let's get that out to folks, because who can resist sweets? Any time of year, this time of year, but any time of year. So thank you all for that food for thought. Lots of very good food for thought. So this month's Song of Compassion is what I've got to announce for you all today. We just finished a 3-month series where we were looking at music for animals, and now we're doing a 3-month series exploring biomusic. So biomusic can be defined as a form of experimental music, which uses sounds created or performed by other than humans. Biomusic. Biomusic can be divided into 2 basic categories. The first is music that's created by an animal, a plant, or a landscape. Genie, I'm wondering if we have some like donkey biomusic, perhaps for a future week. And the second category is music based on animal noises that is then arranged by human composers, right? So it's either by the plant, the animal, the landscape, or it's something that's taken and then kind of composed by humans. So for this month, we'll be listening to a piece created by an American experimental band called the Octopus Project that was formed in Austin, Texas, but the song confusingly has nothing to do with the octopi. It's about mushrooms. For this piece of music, they collected biodata from various mushrooms. Okay, follow me for a second here, folks. Using something called a MIDI biodata sonification device. A MIDI biodata sonification device that turns the fungi data into MIDI information, into audio information that's used to make music and create visuals. Okay, I know that sounds really confusing, so I'm just going to show it to you. So it's an interesting question as you look at this. Ask yourself, is this music that's made by mushrooms? Or is it music inspired by mushrooms? Or is it music from humans inspired by mushrooms? See what you think. This is about a 9-minute piece of music. So we're just going to watch about the first 3, and then I will give you, I'll give you the link for afterwards. So here we go. So does anyone else want to get one of these MIDI biodata sonification devices, head out into
Yes.
their backyard
Yes.
and find out what their mushrooms sound like? My mind is expanded, folks. So I know this is a little different than what we listen to around here. We'll do some bio music from some four-leggeds and some feathered ones in the upcoming months, but something to contemplate as we talk about consciousness and we talk about reverence for the earth and all of that kind of stuff, folks. So we'll put a link in the chat. Ginny already put it in there. If you want to learn more about the Octopus Project, they've got different pieces of music, one for reishi, one for royal trumpets, lion's mane, shiitake mushrooms, and those were yellow oysters. All right, that's it for me for Song of Compassion. We're going to move to our Compassion in Action. Unfortunately, with our musical chairs today, I have another thing to announce, which is Elaine is not feeling well and is not with us today, but she had an amazing interview with Siri Lindley that we have video for. So for about the next 8 or 9 minutes, please listen to this amazing conversation, and then we'll be back with a pretty cool blessing for black cats from Jess and some thoughts from Jenny.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Compassion in Action. Today, our guest is Siri Lindley. She's a 2-time triathlon world champion and a coach to 11 other triathlon world champions. She's one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the world. She's the author of an amazing book called Finding a Way, Taking the Impossible and Making It Possible. She's a cancer survivor. And along with her wife, Becca, she's the rescuer of more than 120 horses on their own facility and a hugely effective advocate against horse slaughter. So welcome, Siri. I am thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I just think what you all are doing is so beautiful. I'm so blessed and privileged to be amongst all of you who honor the loving and the kindness and the compassion for animals and for one another. So thank you for having me. And we actually are up to 317 horses being saved from slaughter. So that number has changed a lot, and we feel so very blessed to do the work that we do.
I wanted to ask you first, can you tell us the story of how you discovered this great love of horses?
Yeah, I really had nothing to do with horses my whole life. My wife had grown up on a farm, but I didn't have the pleasure of that kind of an experience growing up. But we came out to a place called Los Olivos, California. My wife was still racing as a professional triathlete, and I was writing my first book. And every morning, I would take our 3 rescue dogs out for their morning walk. And at the half-mile point, there was this small farmette with a horse in the pasture. And we would stop, and I would pat the horse's nose and, spend time with this beautiful being. And all I knew is that every day when I left that horse, I felt such beautiful clarity. I felt so inspired. I felt so relaxed. And I would go home and I would just write and write and write. So we were there for a full month, and I was so very sad to have to leave. As we were driving out of this tiny little town, there's a horse store. And I said to my wife, I said, stop, stop, stop. I need to go in there real quick. And she was wondering, why is she going into a horse store? And it's as if I don't even remember consciously doing this, but I went inside, I bought a cowboy hat, and I came out wearing it. And my wife looked at me and said, when are you ever going to wear that? And I said, I am manifesting having a horse someday.
Mm.
Well, it was literally 3 weeks later when I realized that the road that I ride my bike on, that I follow my athletes on every single day, had a horse rescue on it. And I'd never noticed it before. So I rode my bike in one day and signed these forms so that I could spend time with the horses. And little did I know that was an intent to adopt. I end up adopting my first horse, and she is over my shoulder right here. Her name is Savannah. She is a 1,400-pound, beautiful, fiery mare. And I knew nothing about horses, remember. So this began a journey where I am learning not only how to bond with her, but how to become her leader. And in developing this relationship and learning how to ride and learning how to take care of her, she changed my life. She changed me. She guided me home to my deepest essence, to my just an understanding of myself that I had never had. She showed me a bravery and a courage that I could never imagine could exist inside of me. And the power of this being in my life, after 3 months, I actually got online and thought, why did I need, what was I rescuing her from? And in that moment, and you can't find this video today, but there was a video showing what was happening to horses. And I'm watching this video and I screamed at the top of my lungs. It was so painful. I felt like my whole heart was just ripped out of my body.
Mhm.
And my wife comes running up the stairs. I have goosebumps right now, running up the stairs thinking that someone that I love has died. And I point at the screen and she watches this video. And we both are just holding each other, shaking from the inside out. You can't unsee what we saw on that
Yeah.
day. And we made, it was that night, I stayed up all night. I got on LegalZoom. I created our nonprofit, Believe Ranch and Rescue. And within 2 weeks, we saved another 5 horses.
Mhm.
This whole time we're like, we don't know anything. So we had to learn how to take care of these beautiful beings, how to feed them, how to get them to trust us. But what we realized was what we did have is we had the ability to love so deeply. We had the ability to just pour love into them. And initially that is all they needed, along with obviously the food and the water. But we then learned, and over the past 7 years, we've saved 317 horses from this horrific fate. We give them the love they deserve, the medical care they deserve. We give them the training so that they can be adopted out to beautiful forever homes. We currently have 24 horses on our property here in California. We have 14 at our satellite in Colorado. The rest of them have either been adopted out to beautiful homes or, some of the cases, some of the horses we saved were in such horrible condition that we loved on them and gave them everything that they could ever want. And then we gave them a peaceful goodbye.
Mhm.
But this work, it is so painful because 60,000 horses a year at the time we started were being slaughtered for human consumption. Now, today, because of our work, and we also have a second nonprofit called Horses in Our Hands that is lobbying in Washington, D.C., raising awareness. We had a commercial that went out to 94 million homes. And because of this campaign of raising awareness, and we spent about $1 million on this, the numbers have gone down to about 23,000 horses a year that are being slaughtered for human consumption. Still awful. But the most important thing for us to not get discouraged is to not focus on the fact that there are still 23,000 that this is still happening to, but to focus on the fact that there are 40,000 horses still alive today because of our work.
What can each one of us do immediately to make the world around us a more compassionate place?
Just go first in sharing love, go first in being kind, go first in acceptance, go first in forgiveness, go first in compassion, go first, be the example. And I'm not saying that will always give you that in return, but we must go first in giving everything that we so want to experience every single day. We can't sit and wait for others to do that, because the more we pour love into the world, we pour kindness in the world, we pour acceptance into the world and understanding and forgiveness, the more we do that, the more likely other people will learn from our example, because it feels good to be met with love and kindness. It feels good to be met with compassion. It feels so good to be accepted. And in that, there's healing. So continue to heal through going first, even when you least feel like you can offer love to someone. Offer that love. Be brave enough to do that, because love heals. That's what you can do today and every day. Lead with love. Go first. And I promise you that that will create the difference that we're all looking for.
Well, thank you, Siri. Those are words of wisdom. And for everybody watching and listening, if you have a chance, read Siri's book. It has moved me and changed my life in many ways. And if you get a chance to hear her speak, hold on to your socks, because she's a powerhouse. Anyway, Siri, thank you so much for being here. There's a link to her website, Horses in Our Hands, which is where she provides a link where you can approach your own senators and representatives for furthering the work of decreasing horse slaughter.
And
Thank you, Siri.
please follow us at Believe Ranch and Rescue is our nonprofit that is doing the rescuing of these horses. Please follow us. We share really inspiring stories. And Elaine, thank you. You're a beautiful soul. And I feel very blessed to be here with all of you. So thank you, everybody, for your love, for your kindness, for your compassion. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you to Elaine and Siri for that lovely conversation. And wow. And now it's time for our blessings and prayers segment of the Sunday service. Rev Sarah has turned on the ability for you all to chat and turn on your videos. Please enter any blessings or prayers you'd like witnessed by this community in the chat. Feel free to support each other in the chat too by chatting with one another. While you do that, I'm going to share some good news. I too am an attorney, and so I keep up on the legislation that is helpful and beautiful and lovely. And I have one to report that some of you may have heard, but I'd like to just share this with you, that Governor Gavin Newsom out in California signed the California Oppose Cruelty to Octopuses. I thought it should be octopi, but it's Octopuses Act, which was co-sponsored by the Animal Legal Defense Fund and Social Compassion and Legislation into law to prohibit octopus farming on land and water and the sale of farmed octopuses in the state. Washington State has also enacted a bill banning octopus farming. And again, this is for human consumption. And similar legislation has also been introduced in Hawaii. But I am just tickled to say that California is the first, and it is the law there now, which is lovely. So, and with that, today our blessing will be offered by Jess Hoffman, who you heard from earlier, who read the tenets for us, who has created a blessing revolving around black cats. Jess.
Yeah, so what I'd like to share about this blessing is I did a video recording. It is my first one kind of composing a video like that. So grace is appreciated, but I do have two black cats, Mystic and Morpheus. And so black cats are very near and dear to my heart in general. But I also was the director of an animal shelter in my 20s. And so I had experience seeing that black cats were often the last to be adopted. And it really stems from superstition that originated in Europe about black cats being associated with witches. So I think it's also timely that we had the the corresponding beautiful speaker who offered her reflections on Wicca and Wiccan. That was really timely in conjunction with the Black Cat blessing. But I wanted to illuminate the fact that that's not the only folklore or magic surrounding Black cats. There's actually many countries that if you are blessed by a Black cat, it is a blessing. And so the video is kind of a compilation of a couple of different facts. I went down a research rabbit hole when I created this, and then a blessing for the Black cats themselves all around the world. They're beautiful.
Let us begin with a moment of silence, calling upon the divine, the great spirit, the universe, the unity underlying all. Let us also invoke the ancient Egyptian goddess Bastet, the goddess of cats, protection, pleasure, and good health. We invite them to join us in this sacred space to witness and positively influence this blessing for the Black cats who walk among us. Black cats, creatures of mystery and grace, they are often misunderstood, shrouded in superstition and myth, yet they are symbols of power and ancient wisdom. They are complex animals, embodying both gentleness and ferocity. As the leaves fall and the seasons change, and as we approach National Black Cat Day on October 27th, let us know there is a releasing and a letting go of the shadows that have unfairly surrounded cats. Let us dispel the myths and superstitions that have caused them harm. Black cats are not omens of bad luck, but rather beautiful beacons of hope and resilience. Across lands and times, Black cats have danced between the shadow and sun, revered and feared, yet always captivating. In Egypt's ancient halls, they were Bastet's chosen, treated with royal grace, their sleek forms mirroring the goddess's beauty. In Scotland, a Black cat's visit was a promise of prosperity. England's brides found luck in their feline gifts, a wedding day tradition steeped in superstition and hope. France whispered of magic in their eyes, calling them madagots or magician cats, their presence believed to bring good fortune if they were treated well. Italy saw fortune in their sneezes, a curious superstition that persisted through the centuries. And alongside knowing and understanding a little bit about their significance to human culture, we honor, respect, and cherish that they are sentient beings with a right to live, breathe, be free, and be held in compassion and care, just as all beings deserve. And in the thread of honoring their lives and their part of our world, I offer these words as a blessing. May the days of all Black cats be filled with the soft purr of contentment as they curl up in sunbeams, their sleek black fur catching the golden rays of the sunshine. May the gentle caress of a loving hand soothe their spirits and warm their hearts. May their nights be filled with dreams of chasing shadows and leaping through moonlit gardens. Their agile bodies a testament to the wild spirit that resides within them. May all Black cats be free to live in ways that align in their best and highest good as a soul-filled being. May they find homes where there is solace, safety, and protection in sunlit corners. May they be a sanctuary where they can rest, recharge, and be safe and well cared for. May their bowls be full, their litter boxes clean, and their toys plentiful. May they never know the fear of hunger, cold, or loneliness. May their curiosity lead them to joy and happiness. May they be surrounded by love, laughter, and companionship. May they be cherished for their unique beauty and their gentle yet fierce spirits. May their journey through this world be filled with grace, dignity, and love. May they be beacons of light, dispelling the darkness of prejudice and misunderstanding. May they inspire us all to see the beauty in all animals. And may we also remember that our black cat friends have much to teach us. May we recognize their wisdom, their grace, their power, and may it inspire us to do and be better for our animal friends. Let us offer our gratitude to the divine, to Bastet, and to all beings who have joined us in this blessing. May this blessing bring peace, love, and understanding to all black cats, and may it inspire us to treat all animals with compassion and respect.
I'm an unabashed black cat lover, and I live with 2 right now. One's tuxedo, so we're gonna add him in there. And you have me in absolute tears. Thank you for the love is so felt through that. Folks, we have been talking in the Animal Chaplaincy Training Program this month about blessings, because it's Blessings Month, as Ginny mentioned, and talking about blessings and how they can feel, right? And I hope that how I feel right now and how some of us feel, I hope black cats everywhere feel that and feel the love that you have put out there for them. Jess, I have no more words. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for trying.
Thank you for the opportunity to share that with you all.
Yeah, I saw a little Merlin in there too, so I appreciated seeing a little canine in on that one too. All right, may his memory be a blessing. Folks, thank you, Jess. Thank you, Ginny. Thank you, Genie. Victoria, as always, my partner in this excitement. We hope that Elaine is feeling better. We hope that William is feeling better. We hope that Phil had a really great day off the bridge today. I know he was doing something really exciting that maybe he'll share with us next time. All of the blessings and all of the prayers that you asked for that are in the chat right now, I am going to take those. Those will be part of my prayers this week for all of you, for all of those names who you have added here, prayers for healing, prayers for blessing, prayers for people who have passed, and for animals who have passed. I will hold those in prayer for you throughout this week. And I encourage all of you to hold each other in prayer or blessing or intention or whatever your word is for caring for each other. And so we will close here before we head to our fellowship with the words that we all say together, blessing each other and blessing the rest of creation, the entire earth, with these words, which we repeat every service. Please say them along with me. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness and to this freedom for all. And please add your ending word from your tradition.
So mote it be.
May it be so. Amen. Amen. So mote it be. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Blessed be for Tamara. And whatever else you all would like to add to make sure that these words go out. If you have enjoyed the service today, we have enjoyed bringing you the service today. If you have enjoyed it, please help us keep running. We have expenses. We volunteer our time, but we do have expenses. And so you can either put your phone up to this QR code. Whoops, where's my phone? This QR code here, or Rev Ginny has put a link into the chat for you as well. If you're watching this in future, hello, future people on YouTube, you could go to compassionconsortium.org and click on donate. We really appreciate it. It keeps us going. I have enjoyed being on the bridge this week, but I am damn excited for Phil to be back next week. Thank you all for your grace as I tried to get all the tech going. And now I will hand it over to Victoria to invite us to fellowship. Thank you for joining us for Sunday service. We hope you stick around.
Thank you, Reverend Sarah. So because we are missing Jennifer, I'm actually going to do the announcements of coming attractions before we move to fellowship. A reminder, you can catch all past episodes, spiritual and meditative practices, plus guest interviews on our YouTube channel. So in November, we will again be offering our friends and family service. If you were around for that last year, it was a real huge success. I don't know how many vegans we made or how many animals we saved, but we sure got a lot of family people saying, you guys are good. And there's value in that. So please, for a repeat and even better, invite friends and family. They don't have to be vegan. They don't have to be vegetarian. They don't even have to have a companion animal. Just invite them and see what they think. They can join you on screen, and you can share the registration link in your social media. During our service, we'll have time for more fellowship and sharing our gratitude with each other. For Compassion in Action, we'll be joined by Kevin Newell, founder of Humane Wildlife Solutions. How exciting is that? He has created a business that is a vegan alternative for compassionately managing the beings that some people call pests. And at our Engaged Member Practice Circle on November 12th, Reverend Sarah will guide us in a writing practice to create pro-animal meal blessings for the upcoming holiday season, which can be difficult for a lot of people. If you're not yet a member but would like to become one, reach out to us. The link is in the chat. And join the weekly online peaceful half hour of vegan-oriented meditation and mindful sharing with David Simon every Monday evening. And if you or someone you know has experienced an animal loss, visit findanimalchaplain.com to locate a chaplain near you, or join Reverend Jenny and Animal Chaplain Jess on Zoom November 14th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also join Animal Chaplain and activist Elena Sigler of the Night Sky Garden on the second Sunday of each month for the emotional support so necessary to animal advocacy.